Welcome back. Now that you've identified some of those old root causes of the imposter syndrome, now we're going to clean it up. This technique that I'm going to go through with you is something that I want you to practice on all of those different things that you've identified. The more that you use this, the more it becomes second nature, just like learning anything new. You're not necessarily the best at it the first or even the first 5 times. But the more you do it, the more it becomes known in your subconscious mind. And just like tying your shoes, once upon a time was an incredibly difficult task. Once you learned how to do it, it becomes second nature. Now you can just simply intend, I'm going to tie my shoes, and you're able to do it relatively easily. Same with this technique. The reason that I'm working with you on this particular technique, and as I mentioned in the last video, there are a variety of different techniques that I use with my clients, and all of them are wonderful. All of them are highly effective. When you have multiple techniques, if one technique is not working particularly well on a specific challenge, you can utilize a different technique. And I like to say it's kind of like if the front door is locked, just go around and take the side door. So you are coming at your challenge in your mind from a different perspective. But this particular technique is a really, really fantastic technique because it's incredibly entry level. And it's also important to understand that you have the ability in any given moment to identify when you are repressing negative emotions and choose. And once you learn how to do this, right, now you can just intend, just like tying your shoes, you intend to release that energy so that you're actually letting it go instead of repressing and keeping it stuck where it just keeps coming back up. It just keeps getting re-triggered over and over and over again. Now, I want you to think about this. These challenges, you didn't just experience the negative emotions once or even twice. You've been feeling these insecurities over and over and over again. What are those triggers? The things that make you question, am I worthy? Am I good enough? I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, whatever the story is that you're telling yourself. What are those triggers? Now notice when you start to think about them, oh, it's when I'm around my peers. It's when I'm talking about money. It's when I'm, this, or that. When you begin to think about those things that frequently trigger these negative emotions, you immediately start to feel a little bit of that negativity, correct? Now, there are plenty of things in your life that are just a non-issue for you. They're a non-issue. Might be an issue for someone else who's got a hang up on certain things. Those particular things don't bother you. It could be how you dress yourself. Maybe someone wears mismatched socks and they're totally fine with it. They don't care at all. They could literally be wearing mismatched socks with shorts so that the whole world can see it and it doesn't bother them a bit. Someone else is going to have so much insecurity that they are going to feel uncomfortable the entire time that they're wearing those mismatched socks. And some people will continue to ruminate over those uncomfortable moments long after they've taken the socks off, they're at home, they should be over it, and they are still dwelling on it. Oh, I can't believe that I was wearing those mismatched socks. Okay. The reason I'm sharing this example is because we can see more clearly and objectively that there are very different ways that we can feel about any given subject. We have the choice. We don't always have the choice in terms of what is happening in the world around us. We maybe don't get the luxury of choosing what laws are passed, how much we have to pay in taxes, whatever is going on in the world. But we have a variety of different ways that we can process that information, different ways that we can think, different ways that we can feel. And when we take responsibility for that fact, the fact that we can shift from our really dysfunctional way of thinking and feeling about any given subject, and we can feel differently. This is where we start to take our power back and our ability to actually start to change the mental habits, the mental patterns that have historically just automatically triggered those old disempowering emotional responses. So when we're going through this process that I'm going to take you through right now, what we're doing is we are reclaiming our power and we are making a choice to release the negative emotional charge on those old associations, the old memories, the old beliefs that we have about ourselves, so that we can more effectively replace those with how we would prefer to feel about that very same situation moving forward. Now, we're always allowing feelings to flow through us. Okay, it's happening all the time. You don't just feel a feeling and then it never goes away, right? They come, they go, they come, they go. We have a problem when an emotion gets stuck, when it gets sort of locked in at that deep cellular subconscious level, okay? That frequently occurs with some type of trauma or intense emotional event, whether it's positive or negative, okay? But for the sake of this conversation, we're more talking about some of those negatives, okay? You're standing in front of the class, you're supposed to give your talk. Someone, the mean kid, yells something offensive. Everyone in class laughs. Now you feel like you just want to shrink. You just want to crawl in a hole. You never want to look at any of those people in the face ever again. And in that moment, that negative feeling got locked in along with whatever conclusions you came to in that moment. So if your conclusion in that moment, and it's all happening so fast, right? In that moment, if you concluded, I never want to be in this situation again. I'm never going to put myself in this situation again. And your mind, that means speaking to a group of people. Now you've got that negative emotion locked in, associated with that conclusion that you just formed in that moment of your misalignment, okay? And it then becomes a problem for you for the rest of your life. Because now you're always avoiding speaking in front of groups. You're given opportunities in your business to grow. You hear, go out, speak to groups, go out, do podcast interviews. There's a TV reporter that I can introduce you to that could do a little segment on your business. What happens? Your mind is trying to protect you. You formed a conclusion, you made a decision. I'm never going to put myself in this situation again because that situation equals pain. And so your subconscious mind is going to find all sorts of really justifiable reasons to avoid those situations. Sometimes you're really aware, wow, I just feel incredibly insecure about that. That creates so much fear within me. There is no way that I can do that, right? You might say, I don't do public speaking. Sometimes it may be a little more subtle, where you think to yourself, I just don't think that timing is going to work for me. And so what do? We self-sabotage. We sabotage our success because of these unhealed, unresolved issues. We're going to start clearing this stuff now, okay? And this process is incredibly natural, incredibly easy. In fact, it is so simple. You may even find yourself thinking, this can't possibly work. And yet it does. Remember, I said we're always releasing emotions. They're coming up, they're passing through. Problem is when they get stuck, which oftentimes occurs because of strong negative emotion. One way is what I just mentioned. It's sort of that acute trauma. The other is that repetitive sort of negative experience. So for instance, if your parents, maybe your dad was sort of gruff and not very affectionate. And so you started to learn early on, when you'd want a hug, when you'd want affection, dad didn't seem interested in that. You felt more like a burden. He always seemed to be pushing you away. And then as you got older, it started to become even more apparent, right? And then you formed, again, those conclusions. I must not be lovable. There's something not right about me. He's rejecting me. And now you come to this place within yourself where maybe you just feel, if my own father doesn't love me, then I'm unlovable. No one is going to love me. If no one loves me, no one's going to want to hear what I have to say. No one's going to want to buy my products and services. As you continue to build your business and grow your success, and you're putting yourself out there more, and you're feeling this deep rooted feeling, I'm unlovable. Well, now you're in direct conflict with what you're creating for yourself. If you associate success and sales and money and opportunities with love and being worthy, and deep within you, you have this unhealed wound and this conclusion that you come to, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. That's where that feeling of imposter syndrome starts to come into play. So you have your list, whether you did it on paper or you just did it mentally. And now we're going to start to release. Inside of the Inner Game Academy, if you are active in there are going to be a variety of different videos that go through the releasing, letting go process. I'm going to take you through that right now, so that we can actually start to release on some of the things that you've identified are old hurts, okay? Now, what I'm going to ask you to do for this initial training portion is to drop your head down just a little bit, just like I'm doing, okay? So that your chin is closer to your chest, and I want you to close your eyes. And we're doing this so that you can be more embodied in this experience. It's more experiential. You can feel it more, which helps the cellular memory, the muscle memory, the subconscious, and conscious awareness of what this feels like, okay? What you are doing during this process so you can replicate it. But once you've learned this, you do not have to close your eyes. You just simply intend, okay? So now what I'm going to ask you to do is think about one of those insecurities. Think about something that triggers you. Notice how it feels. Now, this is exactly the type of stuff that when it gets triggered, you feel the emotions come up, you feel them, you don't like them, and you try to push it away. You try to repress it. But when you're repressing, you're not releasing, which is why it keeps getting triggered over and over and over again. So we want to release it. We want to release and let go of those negative emotions, that negative emotional charge that is being triggered, that is associated with certain actions that you're taking, certain people, certain circumstances. Okay. So when you're thinking about that uncomfortable feeling, I want you to say yes to it. You don't have to say it out loud. You can. No, it sounds weird, right? Why would I say yes to something that doesn't feel good? And here's why. We're not saying yes to the thing that we don't like. We're saying yes to allowing the feeling to come all the way up so we can properly release and let it go. Remember, emotions are passing through us all the time. It's only a problem when we repress them and we keep them stuck. So saying yes to the feeling allows that feeling, it allows us, we're giving ourselves permission to finally let the feeling come all the way up so we can actually release and let it go. These old issues, these old emotional hurts, they've been repressed in many cases over and over and over and over and over again. So as soon as the negative feeling comes up, we immediately put a cap on it. We still feel it, it doesn't go away, but it doesn't leave either. Okay. So now we're just going to say yes, yes. Let that feeling come up, let it pass through. And we just continue to pull up those feelings and just say yes to letting it come up and letting it pass through. Now, you may have already felt a shift, or you might feel like it's starting to move a little bit, but there's still a lot more there. You're just going to keep pulling it out, keep saying yes to it. We're just observing. It is what it is. You feel the way that you feel. Repressing it isn't going to change it. It hasn't worked so far, right? So now we're just going to give ourselves permission to let those feelings come up and let them pass through. Doesn't matter what the feeling is, okay? It is not serving you to hold on to the negativity. Give yourself permission to let it come up so it can pass through. Now, there may be certain things when you feel, you will actually feel a resistance to releasing the energy. When that occurs, you can say yes to the resistance. And even if you can only let go of a tiny little bit of that resistance, just give yourself permission to just release a little bit, and that'll start to dislodge that stuck energy. Now, it's important to note that when this occurs, it's usually because the mind is trying to protect us with fear. If someone has a very, very, very deep rooted fear, whatever it is, if that individual, using that example, standing up in front of the class and someone, yelled something and they felt embarrassed and mortified and humiliated, whatever, right? If they try to release on that and they feel that resistance to letting it go, it could very likely be their mind is trying to protect them with that fear. The mind is saying, no, it is not safe. And if we let go of this fear, then you're going to put yourself in one of those situations where something bad could happen to us. So we have to challenge that, because the fear is destructive. The negative emotions are destructive. There has to be a better way. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, or in this instance, in this example, that individual has to go out and speak to an audience of 3,000 people. Doesn't mean that. We're not saying, yes, I'm going to go do something that I don't feel ready for. What we're wanting to remember is that there's always a better way to feel. So for instance, I could feel like that kid was an asshole. I know he got bullied by his parents. He didn't know any better. And the other kids were just kids. And it's not a big deal. None of them even remember it. And it's not serving me to hold on to this fear anymore. So I'm willing to release and let it go. That can help to dislodge the energy. Further, we can look at what is the fear in the future. So for instance, if someone is holding on to fear that I need to protect myself from putting myself out there because people have hurt me in the past, well, now we've got to be willing to look at what is that fear and be really honest with ourselves. In many cases, it's somewhat nonsensical. It's so highly improbable that when we see it, and I like to say we shine the light of truth on it, well, now, once our mind has seen just how ridiculous our fear actually is, or how unnecessary it is, or unbeneficial it is to be holding on to this negative feeling, now we're able to release and let it go, because there's always a better way that we can perceive any given situation. So rather than being terrified of people hurting me, I would much rather be empowered and confident and know that even if someone rejects me, I'm going to be okay. And so now we can release the fear, release the resistance, taking that negative emotional charge off of that memory, off of that fear, off of that belief. And that allows us to then create the new, more empowering belief that we're going to sort of install, which in this example is, I can be confident. I can be comfortable in my own skin and know that not everyone's going to like me, but they don't now anyway, even with the fear. So why not go for my goals and dreams? There are so many people that can benefit from what I have to offer, from what I have to say. But when we try to just simply replace the disempowering belief with the new empowering belief without cleaning up the fear and all of that old entangled energy, it's not very effective. And that may have been a scenario that you've run into in the past, where you read all the books, you take all the courses, you do all of the good stuff. For some reason, it's just not working. And in many cases, that's because you've got some of these deeper rooted fears, doubts, insecurities. Your mind is just trying to protect you. And you're putting all that good stuff in there, and your mind says, friend, it's not safe. So now let's go through this. Okay. I want you, if you have opened your eyes, I want you to go ahead, drop your head down again, close your eyes, and I want you to think about those feelings. We put this umbrella term on it, imposter syndrome. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you? How are you feeling? What is going on? What's triggering you? Just pull up those feelings, just say yes to them, let it come up, let it pass through. Say yes some more. You identified a whole bunch of stuff from your past. Think about those things. As you tap into the memory, you're going to feel some of those negative feelings. We're just going to say yes to it. Let it come up, let it pass through. Just keep pulling it out. All of those feelings, just saying yes to it. Let it come up, let it pass through. Now we're going to end this video here, and I want you to continue working through these things. Just say yes to the energy, let it come up, let it pass through. Remember, if you're experiencing any resistance to releasing, just look at it. What am I afraid of? What is the thing that I do not want to happen? And when you look at it, that's going to trigger that fear. We're just going to say yes to the fear. And it's always safe to let go just a little bit of those feelings. Remember, we're not saying yes to the thing that we do not want. We are saying yes to allowing the feelings to pass all the way through so we can properly release and let them go. And I will see you in the next video.